Well, welcome to this webinar brought to you by Nomad Mood and Atlassian. Digital transformation and migrating to the Atlassian cloud. I'm your host, David Hull, the Editor-in-Chief here at Silicon UK. The cloud is now a central part to the continued digital transformation of every business. However, not all cloud services are the same. It's vital to ensure your enterprise migrates to the right cloud platform to deliver agility, security, integration to your company when it's needed, and also to drive your industry forward. In this webinar, we'll be covering how to gain a comprehensive understanding of the process involved in migrating to the Atlassian cloud. Also, learn the best practices that will enable a smooth and successful migration to the Atlassian cloud. Discover the numerous benefits of migrating, including increased scalability, flexibility, enhanced security, and also simplified maintenance. Also understand the importance of partnering with an experienced Atlassian migration partner who can effectively and efficiently migrate your cloud and also mitigate any risks and deliver reliable results. Well, today I'm delighted to be joined by two guests. The first is Nicola Stanik, the Senior Solution Engineer with Atlassian. Nicola is an experienced solution engineer with background in pre-sales and partner collaboration. Welcome, Nicola.
Hi.
Well, thanks for joining us today, Nicola. I think it's going to be an interesting one. It's going to be one of, I think we're going to cover a lot of ground, but I think it's going to be quite an engaging, presentation from you both. A second guest is Jax Schufs, who is a Senior Atlassian Certified Expert with Nomad Mood. Welcome, Jax.
Thank you, David.
Well, thanks for joining us, both of you. I think we're going to approach this in a couple of ways. I think you both have some slides to show us as we explain really how a cloud migration can be handled, and all of the topics that we've sort of just outlined in my introduction. But I think what we'll start off with is with you, Jax. I think you're going to present to us a few slides to begin with. Excuse me. And then we're going to jump to you as well, Nicola. I think you have a bit more detail on some of the certain aspects of the technology and also how the migration actually takes place. But first, I'd like to hand over to you, Jax, first to sort of kick us off. So I think we'll be having a conversation as we go, as we sort of get through the slide deck that you have for us today. So I'd like to sort of hand over to you. If you'd like to start to share your screen, we can kick off the presentation.
Thank you, David. Yes, as you said, Atlassian is really trying to get all people migrating from the on-premise versions to the cloud versions. And basically, what is currently happening is that Atlassian is trying to migrate all the people, or they're discontinuing their server product line. And this has been a process that has been going on quite a while. So let me go to the next slide. The end of server has started has started in 2020. When in October, a big bang announcement was made by Atlassian saying that all server products were going to finish. Obviously, they wouldn't do it from today until tomorrow. And here on the slide, you see the different deadlines or the milestones that they had in this process. And now we're less than 6 months away from actually terminating the entire server support line for Atlassian. So there's a couple of options that we can choose. Obviously, you can go to data center, which would be the on-premise solution if you want to keep on-premise. But we certainly would recommend going to cloud. And obviously, a lot of people that have an on-premise solution will have a lot of questions about what is it, what does it offer, is it safe, secure, where is my data stored, etc., etc.
And what was the conversation?
I prepared a couple of slides to go.
Well, absolutely. I was going to ask you first, Jax, before you sort of begin. When you're having conversations with your customer base, are those the kind of conversations you're having? That they are absolutely making decisions about whether it should be on-prem, should it be cloud, should it be hybrid? But there's absolutely a shift towards the cloud, that they absolutely want to move server capability to some kind of cloud platform. It's absolutely part of their digital transformation roadmap.
Yes, exactly. A lot of customers in the beginning, when you start talking to them, are a bit hesitant because, as you say,
Sure.
you're going to cloud. You You don't care. You don't know where the infrastructure is, who is handling it. What is especially very sensitive companies like insurance or banking or whatever.
Absolutely,
They
yes.
have a very secure infrastructure, and they want to make sure that the security measures are all kept in place in cloud.
Of course.
So going back to my presentation, what I would wanted to show is first of all, when you go to cloud, and a lot of people know this, but I just wanted to make sure that they did understand that the Atlassian Cloud Platform is a SaaS solution, which means that you no longer need to take care of the infrastructure. You no longer need to have a backup team that will make sure that your servers are running, that the services are up, that any hard disk space or hardware issue might
Hmm.
come up. So that is a very positive solution of the Atlassian Cloud infrastructure. Um, Other thing that you currently have with your on-premise versions is that you need to schedule in regular updates because obviously
Absolutely.
all tools like the
Yeah.
Atlassian tools come with updates. And in cloud, you don't have this problem. You will always be on the latest version. You will always have the most up-to-date versions. And I also must admit that some features, like especially in Jira Service Management, some
Hmm.
features only exist in cloud. They are not
Yes.
available for the on-premise solution.
Good.
So
Good.
there's a huge amount of reasons why you would want to go to cloud. Also, licensing is more flexible. You can either have a monthly or a yearly licensing depending on the size of your company or the type of company that you have. Assume that you're a startup and you kick off with 10, 20 users
Mm.
and you're reviewing and you think that your company is going to increase very quickly. Instead of having a yearly license, which would be problematic if you want to increase your user tier, with a monthly license, you can adapt it on the fly.
Absolutely. Yeah. And do you
Also,
find that do you find that a
mm,
great deal? When I'm speaking to businesses, that's kind of a big deal for them. That they understand a cloud migration is very important. And usually top of the list for
mhm,
the people I speak to, it's flexibility. It's that ability to have that flexibility with the service, which scales, and that's the important thing. It scales. When your business improves or it expands or whatever it is, the cloud service is there to help you. You don't have to go and buy more servers. You don't have to put more hardware in place. It scales. That's a very, very important
exactly.
aspect, I think, of
Mm,
businesses.
mm, yeah, exactly. This is one of the things that I have here on my next slide. First of all, you have the centralized admin, you have data protection because there's a huge amount of work that Atlassian does in protecting your data,
Mm.
and also giving you the possibility to connect to your own IDP, for instance, connect to your own Active
Yep.
Directory to make
Yep.
sure that you can control everything that your company users do within the Atlassian platform. And as you said previously, there is a huge Atlassian, but maybe Nicola can explain this more. Atlassian
Yep.
uses the Amazon Web Services
Yeah.
infrastructure,
Mm.
and it will allow you to increase your demand for capacity on an ongoing level.
Well, would you like to comment on that, Nicola? Because I think that's an important point to get across. I think in this webinar, the actual infrastructure that the cloud platform is using, it's absolutely from a from someone that's been doing this for years. AWS is well established, but importantly, it does scale. It's secure, it's agile, it's flexible. That's the important point to get across, isn't it?
Absolutely, absolutely. So AWS is our infrastructure partner, and having all of the products hosted in AWS, also in addition to having that flexibility and scalability, it also provides a great flexibility from the regional perspective.
Yeah.
So, in
Sure.
regardless of which region you are in the world, you are using the services of the same quality and same flexibility.
So, Jack, you wanted to go to the next slide, a bit more detail on all of that, I believe.
Yeah, exactly. So as Nicolas said, a lot of companies when we talk to them and they want to migrate to cloud, one of the, especially here in Europe, one of their main concerns is especially because of GDPR, etc. Where is my data located? And this is something, as Nicolas said, Atlassian has thought about, and they currently have the different regions, which you can see in the third column. You've got the global, where you basically have your data anywhere where Atlassian thinks it goes best. But then also you can decide where your data is going to be stored, whether in Australia,
Absolutely.
whether in the EU, whether in USA, Germany, or Singapore. This currently is available for Confluence, Jira, the different Jira versions, and for other specific applications. They are currently stored in the global on a global level, but I've read some public notice that they're currently also working on Bitbucket to give data residency for Bitbucket.
Indeed.
One of the things which I think is important also, because a lot of people that come from on-premise where you have everything in your own infrastructure, is what about the marketplace apps? Because when you install a marketplace app, the way that Atlassian organizes the data is that everything which is related to the Atlassian products is stored in their infrastructure, in the AWS infrastructure, but everything which is related to apps is basically stored in the vendor's cloud infrastructure. So each vendor for a marketplace app will have their own infrastructure to store the data. And Atlassian has provided for this. On the marketplace, you will see a specific tab for each of these apps, which will mention the data storage and the management. So Atlassian has provided to all the cloud vendors or all the app vendors a questionnaire where they will ask them how they store data, what security they implement, etc. And you as an end user, or we as a partner, can consult this and make sure that data is stored securely and that it's stored.
Oh, I see. So part of the service is to look at what I, as a business, have a look at, in effect, do a sort of data audit. Really, where do you keep your data? What is it? What value does it have? And all of those questions, and that allows you guys to then build, in effect, a bespoke system for them, because it won't be the same for everyone. There will be some similarities, absolutely. But the point, of course, with all SaaS applications is if we want to make a change, we can. And we can build something just for your business. That flexibility again, that integration. But importantly, the understanding that we understand how you are organizing your data today. And we can move that to the cloud. We can absolutely do a migration without any issues. And in effect, enhance how you are managing your data. Because once it moves to the cloud, once that migration is in place, then you absolutely have a service which is flexible, is secure, and is agile. That's the point of really how you move that forward.
Exactly.
Super. Now, what I'd like to do is basically change track a little bit. That's why Jackson stopped presenting. We'd like to go into a little bit more detail about, I guess, what the Atlassian platform actually is. So I'd like to invite you, Nicola, to share your screen. I think you have some very interesting slides to present to us, which will give us a little bit more detail on the structure and how the Atlassian platform actually works.
Yeah, 100%. Thank you for that. So, first of all, I just wanted to sort of address what the Atlassian platform looks like in the cloud and take that high-level view of the platform. So, while we essentially take care of the infrastructure and security, we give the time to our customers to focus on building a unified experience for collaborating across all teams, regardless of whether you're working in development, IT, operations, marketing, or HR. And that's your top layer here on the solutions, right? We do have multiple sort of ways to address those experiences from collaboration perspective, connections, and automations that some of those features Jacques already talked about. So essentially, there is also a underlying platform of the data and infrastructure that is a one sort of layer of data and infrastructure for all solutions above that. And in other words, everything is sort of in one place, easy to manage. A lot of the tasks that you have been doing up to this point are sort of outsourced to Atlassian, which makes everything easier and more consolidated and even more secure. Not to mention that it actually may end up more cost effective, right? But also an important part here, and I'll finish with that on this slide, is the extensibility. Yes, we have a whole ecosystem of products to unleash the power of all of the teams, right? But we also appreciate and respect the fact that all of our customers are using other tools in their enterprise, and the integrations are extensive and easy to set up. And I'm more than happy to talk further on that point at some point today.
Okay, yeah, that's good.
Okay, if we break down the drivers sort of for the cloud, what we are seeing with our customers. And it's important to mention that 90% of our customers are already in the cloud or are moving to the cloud. It breaks down in three ways. In the elevated IT impact, and beyond the hard cost savings, there are a number of ways that we can also accelerate team productivity. And of course, the security and compliance, which are sort of foundational elements of our trusted Atlassian cloud platform. So if we take a look at each one of them, for example, we can start with elevated IT impact. And what we have here is all of the areas that our customers own today if they are on on-prem platform. As Jacques mentioned earlier, there is a set of tasks or set of pieces that are owned by the customer on the on-prem. But let's say if we move that to Atlassian, if you're moving to Atlassian Cloud, essentially Atlassian takes ownership of all of those activities, meaning you never have to worry about the out-of-date servers causing a security concern or capacity constraints or version upgrades. And it also enables the IT teams to essentially focus on things like strengthening the core business capabilities, engaging in more proactive and strategic security initiatives, or focusing more energy to a key value area of the business, which may be a customer service.
That's very, very interesting, Nicola, because I also hear a lot, I mean, you probably do as well, Jax, that businesses are trying to do that. They are trying to integrate a lot of their IT. They're trying to make their IT stack less complex, even collapsing their IT stack so it becomes more manageable, more secure ultimately. And absolutely moving to the cloud and cloud migration is an absolutely essential part of that. They can see that on-prem has its uses. Absolutely, that's not going away. But if you have elements of your business which can move to a SaaS cloud service, the advantages are kind of infinite. But it does speak to that trend, absolutely, which is removing complexity from IT.
I would say that's probably one of the main drivers around these migrations, because essentially it frees up the time from IT massively, and it helps them focus on more sort of core business capabilities.
Yeah, absolutely.
But we talked about the accelerating team productivity, and beyond that, hard sort of cost basis and freeing up the time of the IT. We are also bringing in several features or sets of features that can help the enterprises sort of accelerate that productivity within all teams. We do that through connecting people and knowledge, enabling smart making decisions through analytics and data insights, modernizing the workflows through automation, and future-proofing the tools through that extensibility part that goes back to the first slide I showed. Indeed. So I just thought I would show you some of the pieces that that are sort of improved in the cloud. And first example would be the team level roadmaps, which basically make it easier for the teams to visualize and to visualize the delivery of epics, where sometimes teams can struggle to find their way in advanced roadmaps. This can be an easy and simple alternative to show a low-level project progress and dependency management. So this is really a tool that can support your teams in the planning phases of their work. Also, it's all this information is available to your users in the mobile experience. So, being in cloud enables that flexibility, and on cloud we provide one-to-one experience in our mobile apps as compared to the experience in the browser. Now, this is a huge improvement in comparison to the several mobile apps.
Well, absolutely, yes.
Finally, we talked about the
it just occurred to me that that's also I think a fundamental part of migration. It's that you do the migration, but of course then you want to be able to see where are you with projects, where are you with data management, where are you with your security, and where are you with collaboration. I think the cloud, when it's migrated to, really unlocks lots of collaboration. I think that's a huge part of really what the cloud delivers to businesses. I'm sure you've seen this, Jax, a lot when you're talking to customers, that they want to do a cloud migration because they can't do collaboration very well. Data's in silos, various different kinds of apps are being used which are not compatible. The list goes on. But you move to the cloud and it kind of unlocks that. It allows you to do all of that kind of seamlessly.
Absolutely. So I think a major player in all of this is that we see our customers sometimes being hesitant towards moving the cloud because they feel like they are losing control somewhat, and that they don't have enough insight. Well, we are taking the insights to the next level with the recent release of Atlassian Analytics, which is available in the cloud. And with the analytics platform built directly into the product, we can empower teams to make better data-driven decisions using custom dashboards that rely on the metrics that they care about. Right. So essentially, the platform allows for direct reporting from the products themselves, but it also allows the customers to have different sources of data, so they can cross-examine that data and have sort of a bigger picture, if you will. Another point around the analytics here, which is sort of a feature that's coming soon, is having the data lake from Atlassian while using your own BI tools. And that will help our customers, or enable our customers, to essentially view all of their data in the reports that they are already used to, with all of the power of the reporting from the platforms there. Final piece I wanted to talk about here is the security. And as we said, there is a significant sort of notion that there is less security in the cloud. It's actually quite the opposite.
Absolutely.
So when we talk about our security, we talk about our three-pronged approach. The first layer at the bottom here is the security and data privacy being built into the platform, and as well as our architecture. We build the security inside the foundations of our products so that our customers don't have to.
Sure.
The second piece is the robust security policies and practices in place in Atlassian. So it's not just what we build, but it's also how we operate. And the third layer on top is the security features that we are providing as part of this cloud platform to protect the customer's data further. An example of that would be
if you could give us an example, that would be ideal.
Yeah, absolutely. I can give you an example of Atlassian Access, for example, that is a feature or product from Atlassian that allows administrators to enforce multi-factor authentications, IP allow listing, user management in general made a lot simpler, connecting those to IDPs or identity providers, whatever that might be. So really a sort of comprehensive approach to security here.
Yes, and I think security, I would imagine, is probably the very, very first thing everyone asks about with both of you when you're having conversations. That how do we secure this stuff? Is it secure? What can we really move forward with this? But I think once you understand, I guess, how the infrastructure works, then you understand how the security works, and that's kind of important. But I think once you get over that hurdle, and you understand, these platforms and these environments are secure, then you kind of unlocks your mind. You can start thinking about how your business can make the cloud, a core part of its innovation, a core part of its its development. I think that's absolutely important. Now, I'd like to switch back to you, Jax, because what we're going to do next is actually talk about process. I think we've talked about a lot of the theory, why we would do this and how it could be beneficial to businesses. But I think it'd be very interesting to look at the actual migration process. I think a lot of people watching this will be asking themselves, is it complex? Is it time consuming? I don't think it's either of those things, but it'd be interesting to go through the actual migration process just to show our guests how that actually works with Atlassian.
Yeah, so as you said, the process on its own is, well, anything that doing is not difficult. But if you haven't done it, if you've never done it, then obviously it is difficult. So what I'm going to share here is go through the different steps which Atlassian provides on their website. So it's nothing new, but I just wanted to go a little bit deeper in what is going to be done. So there's different steps. There's like 6 steps. First of all, you need to assess, which basically is talk about all the things that we just talked about. What data do I have? Is cloud a good option for me? What type of integrations do I currently have in my infrastructure? Because it might be that you have an integration with your an on-premise other tool that you have, which you are not allowed to export to the outside world, not even cloud, not even with the strictest security. So that might be a reason. Then the second step is planning it, setting up your cloud instance. Then you go to the preparation phase. Then you test, then you migrate, and then you launch. These are the 6 steps. So what I want to do next is go into the details of each of these 6.
That's a great overview. Nicolas got a couple of slides which I think are very interesting. They talk about best practice, and they also talk about timelines. I'd just like to put those in here because I think that's a very useful first step before we come back to you, Jax, and we'll start looking at the actual detail. Because I was looking at this slide of yours, Nicola, about best practice. And I think that's a very important thing, I think, to maybe discuss and get correct. So I think the best practice is probably a slide we definitely want to have a look at. So I think that is core to making, I guess, the migration as seamless as it can be, make the process as easy as it can be.
Sure. I think we talked about some of the challenges, or Jacques has talked about some of the challenges around those sort of movements to the cloud or having those migrations started. But in the best practices, we really took this on, and I would say that most of our customers share these sort of challenges, and we sort of give them the same best practices, which seem to work every time. And from the sort of having that change management in place, it also means that we can involve the partner early and have them by our sides throughout the process. Building a good business case is also an important piece for, especially when we are talking about the higher levels of management, and probably one of the most important pieces around, especially when we're talking about the customers that are sensitive from the security side or regulated financial institutions, anything along those lines, involve the security and legal teams from the get-go. If we have those teams by our side from the beginning, we are all going in with eyes wide open, and we can catch anything that might not be standard or might not be addressed. We can catch it early and resolve it before the migration even goes into a test phase.
Sure. Now, I think you also had a very interesting slide about migration strategies, because I think one of the questions I'm sure you both asked is, how long is it going to take? Is this a huge project? Is it going to take months, years to do this? And I think for some people, they have that mindset that we have terabytes of data. How long is it going to take, guys? So I think this slide is very interesting because it gives us a clear indication of what kind of time frame we're talking about.
And understandably so. And honestly, this is number one question that we get from our customers as soon as we start talking to them about the migrations. How long is it going to take? And it's probably the hardest question to answer. Firstly, because it wildly depends on the complexity of the projects and also the team resources, right? However, we do have several strategies in place that we can consider here, and without reading through the slides, you can essentially see that the lower the complexity, obviously the smaller that timeline may be. However, there is always an option. I think the first three are fairly obvious, but the last migration strategy there on starting fresh can mean starting fresh regardless of the company size, regardless of the complexity of the project, and having that site in the cloud, starting small, and it allows for all of the projects and all of the workloads to be completely clean when they come into the cloud infrastructure. So all of those, when customers ask us, how long does the migration take? It's incredibly hard to say, but anywhere between 3 and 24 months, depending on the size of the projects and depending on the complexities as well as the team resource. If we are all aligned and all of the best practices that we talked about are in place, the timeline obviously goes down and the project is more successful.
Well, absolutely, and that really gives us a really good segue into Jack's next slide, because we're going to talk about the process. We're going to talk about access, assess, plan, prep, test, migrate, and then launch. So actually, you're talking about if you have you spend time doing the groundwork first, then you'll have a much better experience and also a shorter time frame. So I think, Jack, you're going to share your next slide, which actually talks about the first of those steps, which I think is one of the most important, which is the assessment you make of where your business is with data, where it is with structure, and how are you going to move that data to the cloud as a migration project. So I think your first slide about assessing that, I think, is very, very important.
Yeah. So yeah, as you said, these are just a couple of points. First, as I said previously, is cloud a valid option? Think about firewall, security, compliance, all the things that we just talked about. But also, which Atlassian products do you currently have? Do you just have Jira instance? Do you have Jira, Bitbucket, Bamboo, etc., etc.?
Sure.
Some of these products might not be easy to migrate to cloud. For instance, Bamboo doesn't exist in cloud. It is converted into Bitbucket pipelines. So you will need to think about how you reorganize your data and your pipeline in order to include all this in the cloud. Also, think about marketplace apps. As we mentioned before, some of these marketplace app vendors might have their own infrastructure where they save that data, and you might not be agreeing with the way that they do it. Or there might even be an app which is currently available for your server, but does not exist for cloud. So you need to think about a way of transforming your data, or finding a solution for this. Also, user management. As you know, in cloud, your user ID is your email address, but in the on-premise version, you have your own username, which means that you can have, in on-premise, you can have 3 different users, but all with the same email. So you need to think what you're going to do with that. Or you might have even users without an email address.
Yeah.
A lot of companies have usernames to access systems, but they don't have an email attached. So all these things need to be thought about. Also, size and complexity. And then obviously, once all this is done, you need to form your team, which is not only the executing team, the team that is going to do all the hard work and do the migration, but you also need, obviously, your key stakeholders. You need somebody who is going to sponsor this project, because as we've seen, it can take between 3 and 24 months. So there needs to be some sort of investment to go to check this and take this forward. So this is the first step that you need to do.
Yes, assess. I think assess is the foundation. I think if you spend some time doing that right, then I think everything else follows very, very easily. It's a bit like building a house. Get the foundation right, and you build a house, and it doesn't fall down. And if you do that with the migration, do the planning first, put the assessment in place. If you do that very well, I think everything else then falls into place quite easily.
Exactly. And once you've taken that decision that you are going to go to cloud, then you need to plan this. For instance, what do I do with my licensing? And as you might know, Atlassian provides with a cloud migration trial, which means that during a certain period, for a specific within specific conditions, they will allow you to have a free cloud instance while you carry on your migration strategy.
I see. Yeah.
And also Atlassian Access, as we mentioned a couple of times, to connect it to your IDP, so you control what your users do, where they do it, if they set up their own cloud instance. If somebody leaves the company, you obviously want to make sure that this person no longer has access to the system. And this is something that you can do with Atlassian Access. You block this user from using their account once they've left the company. Then you set up your organization. You verify your domain. This is to control which email addresses can log in with Atlassian. And then, as Nicola mentioned before, you have to decide on what migration strategy you're going to take. Optimize and shift, lift and shift, paste, and start fresh. We personally like the first one, which is optimize and shift, because as you know, in your on-premise version, if you have been using Jira for over 10 years, you'll have a lot of projects, you'll have a lot of issues, you have a lot of schemes, you have a lot of configurations and stuff that really is no longer necessary in your infrastructure. So you might clean this up and decide, for instance, this project, we've been using it up until 7 years ago, we no longer need it, we're not going to migrate it. And then there's the quicker options, as we've seen. Lift and shift is basically taking everything and migrating it to cloud.
Yeah, but the point, of course, is with your migration. The point is, no one can come to you and you say, well, we can't do that because you're using this software or this software or this product or whatever it is. That's not the case. We can make an assessment, and if something that you've been relying on for, as you say, a decade is not compatible, there's a solution for that. We can absolutely still migrate your data and your services. It just that means that you may have to look at how you move that to new services which are cloud based. But it's not a case of because you may have legacy systems, you can't use a migration, because you absolutely can.
Yeah. Again, here I want to divert a little bit from what Nicola was saying. There are some limitations in, especially if you have integrations with API REST. The on-premise version of the Atlassian products have at this moment still, they have a much wider API REST than the cloud versions. So there might be certain integrations or certain customizations that you've done which will need you to rethink this, but this would be part of the assessment process.
Indeed.
Where you will decide, can I migrate to cloud or not? But once you have decided to migrate, then we certainly recommend the optimizing first your instances and then migrating it to cloud.
Super. Okay, prepare.
Okay. Yeah. Next thing, once you've decided all this, you need to obviously prepare your team. As I said, you need to include the stakeholders, the key users, the team that will execute the migration, and let them all know that this is going to happen. You need to prepare your site, create this URL, your instance, check your server versions, because a lot of people think, I still have Jira 6.4, which is one of the very old versions that we as partners sometimes still encounter. And obviously, migrating Jira 6.4 to cloud is not possible. It is possible, but you would lose a lot of stuff. So what you would need to do is upgrade your Jira versions to a more recent version, not only for the actual version of the application, but also for all the apps, because certain app versions will integrate with the Atlassian provided cloud migration assistant, but only from a specific version. So it might be that your app version is a little bit older, and then you wouldn't be able to migrate this data directly, and you would have to find a workaround. So sometimes it is easier to just upgrade your server version.
But that would be in your planning stage. You would absolutely put that in your planning stage. That's kind of where you look at all of that. And that's where you do the preparation. That's where you look at how we're going to do this on a physical level. How are we going to do this on a practical level? And issues like that, that's absolutely part of the planning stage. That it even goes back to assessment. But what do we need to change to make this process as smooth as possible?
Exactly. And then you have pre-migration checklists. Some of them I've already mentioned, and there's a lot more out there, but I don't want to go into the detail of each and every one, because then we would never stop. And then very important is also your runbooks. Your runbooks basically will help you and help the team. Obviously, the team will create these on which steps do I need to follow to execute this migration, because obviously you're not going to do your production migration in one single go. You first need to prepare it, you need to try it. Some things you might think in advance, this is going to work, but then when you actually execute it, it might not work, or you need to change stuff. So it is very important that you have these runbooks, that at the time of your production migration, you just have to check off the list each individual step and make sure that things are getting migrated as you expect them to migrate. And then obviously together with this, you also have your timeline that you want to decide, because in your timeline, you need to include your communication. If your team is going to migrate, obviously the entire company is going to be affected, and you need to inform them. You need to let them know this is going to happen at that particular date, and you can't do this 5 minutes before they actually are moving. So you need to have this scheduled in your timeline. Once this is done, once all this has been set up, then as we said, you need to test your actual migration method. You back up your data, because as I said, you first want to do this in a controlled environment. You want to create, if you don't have one, you want to create a replica of your current production environment and try migrating it to a sandbox in cloud. A sandbox in cloud is basically a QA environment which Atlassian provides with certain plans, where you can quickly migrate, check if everything works, also work the user acceptance testing, which is very important because we as vendors, obviously, we have the knowledge on how to migrate, but we don't always have the fine details on how your daily operations work, how your workflows is supposed to work. So user acceptance testing is very important. We usually sit down with our customers and we explain to them that we want them, with our guidance, that we want them to create the user accepting test because they need to decide, they need to say this migration went fine or it didn't went fine. And they can somebody only can do this if they really know the ins and outs of their current procedures, of their current work.
Indeed.
Once you've done that, you need to test your migration. As I said, you can use the sandbox and your on-premise QA environment. You prepare training materials because even if you go from an on-premise version to the cloud version, there's always going to be differences that you need to explain. Something important, for instance, is in Jira Service Management in cloud, you have incident management, problem management, you have change management. All these kind of small things are not available in data center, or in server. So people that are going to work with these tools, you need to explain them. Also the way of accessing your dashboards or your boards, etc. All these small things, you need to have a training material, either on in-room training sessions current with the users or documentations where you can quickly share this. And then in your test plan, obviously, the more you get to the end of your test period, you're going to have to communicate to your end users. This is going to be the final date when we are going to migrate. What is the plan? How are we going to do this? What do you need to do in advance? What are the URLs if I go to cloud? What are the URLs that I need to access once it's done? And what do I do if I find an error as an end user?
So yeah, absolutely. I think basically the testing phase is absolute, and I think that's kind of where you realise if your assessment and your planning is good enough, and it will give you what you need it to do. I'd like to bring Nicola in for a second. With all of this, when you're looking at testing, you're migrating to the cloud. The infrastructure that the cloud has and the tools and the power that it has is absolutely important when you're doing the testing, isn't it? And AWS kind of delivers that. That you have a platform with AWS that I guess is flexible enough. It does have the security, it does have the integration. And when you're doing your testing, you don't have to worry about the environment because it's mature enough.
Correct. Yeah, and also there's as Jacques pointed out rightfully, the testing phase is continuous almost. So once we go into the test phase with the customers, something may have not gone the way they wanted, and it needs to be repeated. Having the available resources there to do that sort of testing over and over is very important. Obviously, our infrastructure allows for that. Also, as was mentioned earlier, the sandboxes are already in place in the cloud, which you can use to basically test everything out to lower that downtime or not having it at all. It really sort of the infrastructure plays a crucial part there, and everything Atlassian made sure that everything is in place so that our customers can make that transition as smooth as possible. Sure. Obviously, partners are there to help with that.
Absolutely. Okay, Jax, I think the next one is the big one. You pull the trigger and we do the migration. I think that's your next slide.
Yeah. Well, my biggest one is basically the test environment, because if the testing goes well, then your actual migration should be like this. It should be very quickly. Yeah. So once you get to the actual production migration, you would set your server in read-only to make sure that nobody goes in and just changes some ticket in Jira or some Confluence page at the last minute and then you lose it during the migration. So you need to be absolutely sure that it is read-only. You can also add some banner message, for instance, or obviously in your communication plan, you will also warn users that they will no longer be able to change anything. And then you run the production migration. From one side, you use the Atlassian tools, which is the migration assistant, as we mentioned, and then you migrate the app data that wouldn't have been migrated automatically with the migration assistant. Then again, here is a very important step of your customer trying the migrated data, doing the Q&A, their UAT testing, and then for me, a very crucial part in this entire process is what I like to call the go, no-go meeting. Basically, it is the moment at the end of the migration when all teams have decided we've finished the migration, we have done the QA on the customer side, and we sit together and we go over the results. Is all data there? Is all testing okay? Are there any issues that might block us from going to production? If there are, then obviously this will be a no-go and we'll need to do the replanning from scratch. But usually there are very minor issues that come up. And then the customer and ourselves will decide, okay, we can go through with so it will be a go. We can go through with the actual placing this in production, informing all our users that they need to go to the new infrastructure. And these smaller details that came up during the migration can be resolved after the migration.
Okay.
So once this decision has been taken, you've decided, okay, this is a go, let's go for it. Then you got your last part where you would launch the communication to your team. You have been informing them previously, but now you will say to them, here, go to cloud, use this environment. It is happy for you to take you on. And then after that, obviously, as we all know, if you change an infrastructure or if you change a system, even if it's the same tool from a different on a different platform, you need some hypercare. Hypercare is the phase in where we as a vendor provide our customer help with any kind of issue that might come up. Either they have, as administrators, they have an issue, they don't know where to find something, or even their end users, if they find they can't find their dashboards or their boards or whatever, we are there to help them. What we'll also do is transition the support and maintenance team. So what we mentioned at the beginning, that these maintenance teams no longer need to address infrastructure issues, services up and running. They can now be dedicated to planning ahead, thinking about things that they want to do in the future. So you can really focus these teams to actually the core functionality of your business. And then obviously you would go on and implement your cloud security best practices and follow cloud updates, because as we said in the beginning, cloud is there and it updates every week. Every so often you have new updates, and you can follow these. Atlassian has a website where you can follow these updates, and you will see what is in the progress, what is being launched today or next week. So this is also very important.
Yes, you're always informed, aren't you? You're always aware of where you are in the process. That's the important thing. None of this is hidden. None of this is confusing. You can see where you are. I think that's an important thing as you move through the process, that you can see this, and all members of the team can see that as well. And it's all communicated across the team that's going to do the migration. I think that's kind of where we're going to leave this actual webinar. What I'd like to do is really, I guess, yes. Would you need any help? How can Atlassian help you? Well, if you're a business which is absolutely looking to do your migration to the cloud, then I would encourage you to visit the Atlassian website for more information. As I said, we're coming to the end of this. This I think it's been an insightful webinar. I think it gives a lot of people listening to this some food for thought. If your business is looking to do migration, then Atlassian can absolutely help you to achieve that with, I guess, the least amount of barriers. I think that's what Atlassian is about. It's removing barriers. It's about making that process as smooth as possible. Well, I'd like to thank Jax and Nicola for their really insightful presentations and insights for this webinar. So until the next time, it's a goodbye from me. It's a goodbye from Jax.
Thank you, David. Thank you, everyone.
And it's goodbye from Nicola.
Thank you for having me.